Good morning. So we will continue our discussion from the previous class. So yesterday we had discussed about numerical solution of linear algebraic equations, and what we noted is that for any type of, or what we discussed was that for any type of method like finite difference method or finite volume method. Finite volume we have not yet studied obviously, but we are going to study later on. But whatever is the type of method, ultimately the equations form in this pattern. So where the equation for a grid point has its neighboring grid point values also as part of the equation. Okay, and so for n number of grid points, we have n equations and n unknowns. If it's a 1D problem, it will be n equations, n unknowns. If it's a 2D problem, accordingly, the problem will scale. And we need to solve these equations simultaneously to get the value of n unknowns. Otherwise, we cannot get them. So we have seen two types of methods. One is direct method. The direct method that we have studied is known as tridiagonal matrix algorithm, TDMA method, which is very suitable for 1D type of problems where you have the unknowns in a single row. So that for any point, any grid point, the equations have its two neighboring grid points as the unknowns. So the equations form in a tridiagonal form like this. So that's why we use the method which is known as tridiagonal matrix algorithm for solving this set of equations. We can also use general methods like Gaussian elimination, but these are very slow. That also we have discussed. So in the tridiagonal matrix algorithm, we have seen what is the process. We start with something which is known as forward elimination. So one by one, we find the coefficients P and Q. Starting from the previous value, starting from P1 and Q1, we find P2, Q2, P3, Q3 like this up to Pn and Qn. And then we find that the unknown value is equal to Qn. So after that, once the unknown value for the nth grid point is known because it is equal to Qn, then we go in the backward direction and find out the unknown values for I minus 1, I minus 2 like this. So n minus 1, n minus 2, n minus 3 like this up to I equal to 1. So this was known as backward substitution. Okay, forward elimination and backward substitution. So this method is very useful for 1D problems because this is very fast and the number of steps required is of the order of n, where n is the number of grid points, instead of order of n cube, which is required for normal solution algorithms like Gaussian elimination. Then we have seen a couple of iterative methods, the Jacobi method and the Gauss-Seidel method. Both are somewhat similar, like one is the extension of another one, and we have seen how to solve problems for that. Okay. And what is convergence and how fast the convergence occurs. And finish by learning about a criteria which is which gives us an idea about whether, or which gives us a sufficient condition about whether convergence will occur or not. Okay. So depending on the coefficient values of the equations, and we have seen in our example also how this Scarborough criteria actually fits, that it works. That also we have seen. So all these are there in the video lecture. You can go through them. I have uploaded the video. Okay. Please keep working on the assignment problem also, which you need to submit by March 6th. So we will continue to the next method. The final method that we are going to study for this iterative schemes is known as line by line TDMA. Okay, line by line tridiagonal matrix algorithm. So this is a modification of the TDMA method that we have studied for the 1D problem, but this is used for 2D or 3D problem, and this is much faster than other iterative methods. Okay, This is much faster than the Gauss-Seidel method. Gauss-Seidel we have noted is faster than Jacobi, but still actually is a slow method. But we will see that line by line TDM. We will not see. We will just discuss that it is much faster than the other two methods. Okay, because it directly solves for a line and quickly passes the information from the boundary to the interior parts of the domain. Okay, let us see how this method works. So again, consider a 2D domain. Okay, consider a 2D domain where in the x direction the grid points are given by the index I, and in the y direction the grid points are denoted by index j. Okay, so any grid point, typical grid point, can be written as I comma j. Is east neighbor is written as I plus 1 comma j, west neighbor is I minus 1 comma j, north neighbor is I comma j plus 1, and south neighbor is I comma j minus 1. So this east west north south notations are very much used in CFD, as we will see later in finite volume method. We use the notations instead of IJ, we use east west north south. Okay. But you can correlate them. East one is I plus 1 comma j, west one is I minus 1 comma j. Similarly, north and south ones are also there. IJ comma 1, j plus 1, and I j minus 1. So this discretized equation for this type of 2D problems, typically for the I comma j point, will involve is 4 neighboring points. Okay, so the equation will look like this: Aij for the ij grid point ai comma j tij, okay, is equal to ai plus 1 j. So the coefficient for this ai plus 1 comma j, ti plus 1 comma j, plus ai minus 1 comma j, ti minus 1 comma j, plus ai j plus 1, ti j plus 1, plus ai j minus 1, ti j minus 1, okay, plus bij, which is the source term or the other known terms. Okay, so this will be the equation for a 2D problem. Similarly, you can imagine for a 3D problem, we will have 6 neighboring terms in the on the right hand side. We will also have the k terms. Okay, so 6 neighboring terms will be there on the right hand side. So for 1D problem, we have 2 neighboring values. For 2D problem, we have 4 neighboring values. For 3D problem, we have 6 neighboring values. Okay. Since our TDMA was developed for 2 neighboring values, because it's a tridiagonal matrix for two neighboring values, we will try to use that for this case also, although here we have 4 neighboring values. So what are we going to do? We are going to take any one of the directions, either the I direction or the J direction. So here I have shown the I direction. For the I direction, we will consider that this is a single line, okay, like a 1D problem. For the I direction, this is a 1D problem for any value of J. Okay, so for example, for J equal to 3 or J equal to 4 or whatever is the value of J, we will just consider the ith direction and consider that this is a 1D problem. Okay, so for any point I comma j in this situation, we have the 2 neighboring values, okay, which are also unknowns, plus 2 outside values, the top and the bottom values, the north and south values basically. So these two values which are outside this 1D line, we will use old iteration values. Okay, whatever is the known value, we will use the old iteration values from the previous iteration, the known values. And for the lines which are internal, for the lines which are on the line, we will treat them as unknown values. Okay, so the equation will look like this. This diagram is open here. The equation will look like this. So I have written also, we can use TDMA along one direction like a 1D problem by taking old iteration values as known values for the other direction. For our present example, Aij, Tij for the kth iteration, okay, Aij, Tij for the kth iteration, plus Ai plus 1 j, Ti plus 1 j, okay, minus, sorry, it is being brought on the left hand side. So minus Ai plus 1 j, Ti plus 1 j for the kth iteration, which is also unknown, minus A minus 1 j, Ti minus 1j, Ai minus 1j, Ti minus 1j. For the kth iteration, again unknown. So these three are the unknowns along the I direction. Then along the j direction, the values, the two values we will take from the previous iteration. So Aij plus 1, Tij plus 1, k minus 1 iteration value. So we are assuming that k minus 1 iteration values are already known for the entire domain. Okay. Only the kth iteration values we are trying to find. The previous iteration values are already known. Okay. Plus Aij minus 1, the bottom value, Tij minus 1, k minus 1th iteration value. Again, it is known. And Bij, which is the source term, known value. So all the Aij values means A coefficient A values are known and B values are known. Plus the k minus 1 iteration values are known. So we only have unknowns which are the kth iteration values. Now we have three unknowns along this direction. Everything else can be clubbed together in a single term, like we have done for our TDMA. Okay, everything else can be clubbed together, like we have done for the TDMA. So the equation will again become of this form. Okay, three unknowns and one known value. We can express in this form, and we can solve it using TDMA, normal TDMA, to find the value of the Tij, Ti plus 1j and Ti minus 1j. So find all the n values along this line, okay, simultaneously by solving the n equations for the n unknowns along the I direction. So in one go, we will find all the values of the grid points along the I direction. Okay, which values we will find? We will find the kth iteration value. Okay, these values are not the final values because we are using old iteration values for the j direction for each grid point. This will not be the final correct values, but some intermediate value, kth iteration value. Okay. Once we find the value, what are we going to do? Okay. So we are going to go to the next line. We'll take the next line and again do the same procedure. Again follow the same procedure. Again find all the values in one go for the next line. Okay. By taking the k minus 1 iteration value for the two sides. Similarly, we will go to the next line. Like this, we will proceed. Okay. So we will start from the bottom line and go to the next line, then the third line, fourth line, fifth line, like this, and find out all the kth iteration value. Once we pass from one side of the domain to the other side, all the kth iteration values are known. Okay. We will check for the convergence criteria. If we see that convergence has not occurred, then we will go for the next iteration. For the next iteration, typically what is done is that the direction is changed. Okay. So instead of taking the horizontal line, we take the vertical line. I will discuss why this is the case, but we typically take the vertical line and we start with the first column here, then the second column, third column, fourth column, like this. Okay. For each column, we will have three unknown values for each equation, the vertical values and the horizontal values we will take from the previous iteration. So again, it will be a tridiagonal matrix and we will be able to solve using tridiagonal matrix algorithm for each column. Okay. So we will go one by one and we will pass the entire domain from the left to right and find out all the k plus 1 iteration value. Then we can go for the next iteration. We will keep on doing until we find convergence has occurred. Okay. So this method of going from one line to the next line is known as sweeping. Okay. So I will quickly explain what is written here. So entire I direction is solved in one iteration. Okay. What we have discussed, entire I direction, enter one direction is solved in one iteration. And going in the other direction, like moving the line to the next line, is known as sweeping. Okay. Then we alternate the sweeping direction to accelerate convergence. Why does the convergence accelerate? Because in the direction in which sweeping is not happening, in the direction in which the calculation is happening, which is known as the traverse direction, okay, along the line, the traverse direction, all the information is passed in one go. The boundary information is passed at once, okay, because you are directly solving the equation for all the points together in one iteration. All the information from the left and right sides pass into the interior of the domain. Okay. Instead of Gauss-Seidel or Jacobi method, where the information passes one point by one point in each iteration. And in one iteration, all the information passes to the interior points in the traverse direction. In the sweeping direction, the information passes one grid point at a time. Okay. So when we change the direction of sweeping from the horizontal to the vertical, then the vertical information passes in one iteration directly. Okay, and the horizontal information passes slowly. Again we sweep, again we change the sweep direction to horizontal. Again the horizontal information passes quickly. So by alternating this sweeping direction, we pass the information from both sides, like the horizontal as well as the vertical sides, very quickly to the interior. Okay. So as a result, this method is very quick. Okay, and particularly quick if we keep on changing the sweeping direction. Also in general, if you have a flow type of problem where the flow is occurring from one side of the domain to the other side, like flow in a pipe, if you sweep in the direction from the upstream to the downstream, it is seen that the information passes very quickly. If you sweep from the left side, in this case, the flow is from the left side to the right side. So if you sweep along the flow, the information passes very fast along the flow, and convergence is much faster. It has been seen like this. Okay. So this method is known as line by line TDMA and is an extension of the TDMA method for 1D. Okay. This can be extended for 3D also. So what will be done in 3D? We will solve for one line, then sweep in the y direction, then go to the next z direction, again sweep in the y direction, go to the next z direction, again sweep in the next y direction. Like this we will proceed. Okay. So the line will proceed in a sweeping fashion like we have discussed for the entire plane. Then we will switch on to the next plane, again solve for the entire plane, we will switch on to the next plane, solve for the entire plane, like this. So once the entire domain is covered, one iteration is finished. Then we will change the sweeping direction to the z direction, again proceed in a similar fashion. Then we will change the sweeping direction to the k direction. K is the third direction, z direction. Okay. So we will keep on switching the sweeping direction from x, y and z and solve the problem. Okay. That also is line by line TDMA, but for a 3D problem. Again, the solution will be much faster as compared to the previous two methods. Any questions on this? Any questions on the in general also on the numerical solution? Yes. So this is so there are other methods also for solving the linear algebraic equations that are formed by finite difference or finite volume method, but these are the most common methods and you should be able to implement them. Okay, at least the TDMA for 1D you should be able to implement for solving a 1D problem implicitly. If it's an explicit problem, we don't need any of these methods. We can directly find the value as we have seen and as I have given in the assignment problem. You don't need any of this method for the assignment problem. You can directly find the values. You do grid by grid, point by grid point, okay, instead of solving simultaneously n equations and n unknowns. This is required when each of the equation has more than one unknown. So like this type of, so one equation has three unknowns, then you will need simultaneous solution and any of the methods will be required, either direct solution or iterative methods. Okay. So up to this point is your syllabus for the mid-sem exam. Okay. So now we will go to the next topic, which is the finite volume method. Okay. So whatever we have covered till now from the beginning of the course is part of your mid-sem exam, and what you can expect is more problems like kind of derivation kind of problems, non-numerical problems. Numerical problems are very rare in this type of CFD exams. Okay. It can be given, but it is very boring to solve numerical problems by hand calculation. Like say if you have to do these iterations, 8 iterations, it is very boring because you know already the step. In one iteration itself it is clear what is the step, and I can also know that you know the steps. Then just continuing it till convergence is very boring by hand calculation. On the other hand, solving it by programming is much more enjoyable. Okay, so writing CFD programs are much more enjoyable and much more practical. So ultimately, you will learn by solving problems through programming and by solving your project problem later on. But the exams are still a requirement, and as a result, it will test the basic knowledge, like fundamental knowledge, like what are the, say, how to discretize a typical 1D conduction problem using finite difference method, then how to convert any PD, any given PD into its finite difference equations, the nature of different types of PD, their domain of dependence and domain of influence. Things like that can be part of your midterm exam. Okay. Say what is the algorithm for TDMA or line by line TDMA? Then what is the algorithm for Gauss-Seidel method? Okay. All this can be asked. So now we move on to the next part of the course, and for the rest of the course we will be focusing on this next part, which is the finite volume method. Okay, so this will be there in your NSM exam. So finite volume is the most popular method that is used in CFD problems. Okay, what is finite volume method? This is also a method for discretizing the equation, similar to finite difference. Okay, so ultimately, after using this method also, you will get a set of linear algebraic equations which you need to solve using the techniques that we have already discussed. Okay. So the finite volume method will give us this discretized equation. So it will give us equations like this. Okay. So the solution for these equations will be done in a similar fashion, what we have discussed. But how to get this discretized equation? There we will differ from the finite difference method. Okay, in the finite volume method. So I will just give you a few points today about the finite volume method, and we will continue in the next class. And once we discuss about the finite volume methods, these points will be clear what it means. Okay. So this uses the integral form of the conservation equation. Conservation equations can have two types of forms: differential form, which is valid at a single point, and integral form, which is valid over a larger domain. Okay, so this uses the integral form of the conservation equation. It has its advantage, as we will see later. The finite volume method, because of the nature of the conservation equation treatment, is actually it confirms, or it basically it confirms that the conservation of the parameters like momentum or mass conservation, momentum conservation, energy conservation will be valid over the entire domain directly. This is not true for finite difference method. Okay, in finite difference method, the governing equations are valid over a single point, but we solve for all the points, but it is valid over a single point, and we confirm that the conservation of the equations will be valid over single points, single discrete points, but we do not have any direct check of whether the conservation of the energy holds true for the entire domain or not. Okay, it may also happen that for the entire domain the conservation of energy is not correct. Okay, although it is correct for individual points. Okay, but for finite volume method it will be true that the conservation is correct for the entire domain. What this means, I will come to it later. Okay, at this point it may seem confusing to you. I will come to it later on. So what it does, this finite volume method, in this method we divide the domain into a finite number of control volumes. Okay, each control volume has finite size. Okay. This finite size means that they are not infinitely small. Okay, they are not very small. They have a finite area or finite volume. Okay, each of these control volumes has a finite volume. Okay, they are not infinitesimal. Means I am not dividing into infinite number of volumes. They are not infinitesimal. Okay. Each control volume, these are known as control volumes. Okay, each of them is known as a control volume. So this is what you get after meshing in a typical software. You get the control volumes. Okay, after meshing. So each control volume is represented by a grid point. This grid point is typically at the centroid of the control volumes. Centroid means the center. Okay, center point. So if it's a triangle, it is at the centroid of the triangle. If it's a single line, it is at the center of the. So if it's a 1D problem, it will be a line. The control volume will be a line, and it will be this grid point will be at the center of the line. Okay. So similarly, if it can be the control volumes can have arbitrary shapes. It can be pentagonal, hexagonal, quadrilateral, triangles. Okay, it can have any arbitrary shape. Okay, I have shown highlighted one pentagonal control volume, and it can be a mixture also. It can be some of them can be triangle, some of them can be quadrilateral, some of them can be hexagonal. Okay. Each of them will be represented by a grid point at its center. All the properties or the unknown values such as temperature, pressure, okay, velocities, then all the other properties like density, viscosity, conductivity, CP means specific heat, all of them are defined at these grid points. So the grid point represents the entire control volume. You do not have any variation within the control volume. You do not have any variation within the control volume. For the entire control volume, the value is represented by its grid point. So these are like discrete values. Okay. So each control volume is like a pixel. You can say it is like a pixel. So it is the minimum resolution. Okay. So if I have n control volumes, I will have n temperature values at n points. I will have n pressure values at n points. Okay. Within a control volume, you do not know what is the variation of temperature. The entire control volume will have the same temperature value. Similarly, the next control volume will have the same temperature value. Next control volume will have the same temperature values. There will not be any variation of temperature within the control volumes. But from one control volume to the other control volume, there will be a variation of temperature. Okay. Just show something. I will keep something open to show how actually it works. While discussing, we will open some result from one of our studies to discuss how it works. Let it be there. Okay, so all the properties are defined at the grid points. Okay, so this is a representation of control volumes in a domain together with the grid points. So for one control volume, I have shown the grid point. Typically, grid points are represented by the variable p, okay, for the point, and its neighboring values. If the grid points follows a structure, we will see later that it can have structure or it can be unstructured. This is the unstructured grid mesh. We can also have structure like following a typical rectangular grid pattern. In that case, all the neighboring values on the x and y direction means will be defined as north, south, east, west, like this, what we have seen previously. Okay, it can have a structure like this. Okay, so each of these will be a control volume. So the pth control volume will have east neighbor, west neighbor, north and south neighbor. And for unstructured grid, there are neighbors, but you cannot call east, west, north, south. You have to just define by their index values 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 like this. So what is done for this finite volume method is that you take the governing equation. For example, if I take the 1D diffusion equation with source term, the 1D diffusion equation with source looks like this: d dx of gamma d phi dx, where phi is the unknown variable. Okay, because it's 1D, we have only variation with the x direction. We only have domain along the x direction. Okay, it can be a conduction problem or any other problem, some diffusion problem. This term plus some source term S is equal to 0. There is no convective term and there is no transient term, okay, in this example. So we divide the domain into control volumes. These will be 1D control volumes. Although I am showing them as 2D control volumes, actually the domain is a line because it's a 1D problem, it is a line. And you divide the domain along the x direction. So each of the domain has length delta x. So if going from small w to small e, it is delta x, okay, and is represented by the grid point P at its center. Okay, so instead of this type, the control volumes will actually look like this. I don't have a picture here. Just a second. So the control volumes will look like this. So it is a single line, okay, and this is the pth control volume grid point, and this is the control volume. Okay, it has a length delta x. Its neighboring control volume is this one. Okay, it is represented by E. Its neighboring on the control volume on the other side is this one. Okay, so the boundary of the control volume is given by small w and small e. So this part is the single control volume in 1D. Okay, up to this point, and this is its grid point or representative point. This is how it looks. Although I have shown in a 2D manner in the notes, this is how it will look. So now we have to integrate our equation. So this is the main step in our finite volume method. We have to integrate the equation over the entire control volume. So we have to integrate the equation, one equation over the entire control volume. So we have to integrate over the control volume d dx of gamma d phi dx dv plus integration over the control volume s into dv, okay, where dv is the elemental volume, equal to 0. So now using divergence theorem, so there is a theorem known as divergence theorem. You need not know it, but I will just explain what it means. What it means is that the change in flux within a control volume is equal to the flux which is coming from its boundaries. Okay. So change that occurs in a control volume is due to the flux which is coming from the boundaries. Obviously it is true. The change in energy in a domain has to be because of the change which is coming from the boundaries. Net energy exchange from the boundaries of the control volume. Okay. So mathematically the divergence theorem, what it does, it converts. I will come to this later on, okay, how the divergence theorem looks like. But for this case, what it means is that once you integrate over the control volume, you basically find what is the flux at the boundaries, okay, the net flux over the boundaries. So in this case, the boundaries is the east boundary and west boundary. So net flux over the boundaries is gamma into area. Area is the area of the x interface. Okay, it is 1 for a 1D problem. Gamma is the diffusivity. Gamma A d phi dx. D phi dx east minus gamma A d phi dx west. Okay. So gamma A d phi dx east is the flux over the east face of the control volume. Gamma A d phi dx west is the flux over the west face of the control volume. So this is the net flux over the boundary. Okay. Plus any source term, okay, net source term S over the entire control volume, average source term, into the size of the control volume delta V equal to 0. So physically it means that whatever change occurs due to source term is equal to whatever change that occurs over the boundary. So any energy that is generated in the domain because of source or is taken away from the domain, okay, because of negative source, is equal to the energy which comes from the boundary. Obviously this has to be true from conservation. Okay. Although it is not clear from this example, this important step of integrating this differential equation over the entire control volume ensures that the conservation of the property occurs over the entire control volume. Okay. So because conservation of property, like say conservation of energy or conservation of momentum occurs for the entire control volume, for each control volume, for the overall domain of the also conservation of property occurs. If you directly solve from this equation, discretized equation, if you directly discretize from this differential equation ensures that the conservation of property occurs at a small point, infinitesimal point, okay, at each grid point. So accordingly, the conservation of properties will be valid for each point, but for the overall domain, we cannot ensure that conservation of properties will occur. Okay. So although it looks similar to our finite difference method, there is a slight difference, and because of this integral form also, we will see later, we can tackle any complex domain also. Whatever is the volume, it's a pentagonal volume, hexagonal volume, triangular volume. Ultimately, we have to just integrate over the entire volume and find out the flux over all the faces, the net flux over all the faces, and then we will be able to find the discretized equation. From this, we will be able to find the discretized equation. Okay, so this is the idea. Okay. So this I wanted to show you something. How the mesh structure looks like. Okay. So say there is some temperature variation, some problem we have taken, some temperature variation is occurring. So these are like pixels. Okay. So each of this control volume, each of the small cubes that you are seeing is a control volume. Okay. Each of the small squares you are seeing is a control volume. So the temperature at each control volume is not going to change. It is represented by a single value like a pixel. So the next control volume will have a different temperature value. The next control volume will have a different temperature value like this. So each of them is represented in the code by its grid point value. And for the entire control volume, the temperature is equal to the grid point value. We cannot differentiate between the temperature for each grid point. Okay, even if I take a very small size, okay, each one will have a different temperature. I will take from another location. And other properties also similarly, each point will have a different value. Okay, so there is no difference in value within the control volume, but there is difference in value with the neighboring control volumes. Okay, so when we solve the equation, we have the control volume value and these four neighboring values in 2D. Okay, the east, west, north, and south values, and accordingly we solve the equations using any of the methods that we have learned for solving the problem. Okay. Now, what is done in typical softwares is that instead of showing discrete values, there is interpolation while plotting the value. So if you use ANSYS, you will see that there is interpolation while plotting the value, and the values looks like that there is nice variation that is occurring. So here you can see that there is change within the control volume also, but this is not the output of the code or not the output of the software. Okay. Software gives you discrete values. This is just interpolation while plotting, so that the figures look nice. Okay, so that the variation looks nice, and accordingly we can solve the problem. This is for some problem which I was describing yesterday. encapsulated PCM with metal foam structure, okay, which we are solving. So some encapsulated PCM with metal foam structure is present, and inside PCM is present, and we are solving it to find out what is the variation of energy and melting rate within the domain. And we see how the temperature changes and how the melting occurs within the domain with time, like this. So how this happens. My point of showing that was to show you how the individual control volume values look like, okay, that they are not different values. So what are the main steps in the finite volume method? Main steps are that we divide the entire domain into a number of finite size subdomains, which are called as control volumes. We have already discussed that. Finite number of finite size subdomains. If it was infinite number of domains, then the size will be infinitesimal. We do not do that. We divide into finite number of domains. Okay. Each domain is represented, each subdomain is called as a control volume and is represented by a grid point. Typically, the grid points are at the centroid, but it is not a fixed rule. It can be not also at the centroid. It can be at some other point also. But that will make the equations more complex. Then we integrate the governing equation. As we have seen, we integrate the governing equation over each control volume. So for one control volume, we have seen. Similarly, we have to integrate for all the control volumes, the governing equation. Okay. Then there is another step which will become clear in the next few classes. Okay. So after the integration, we have come to a form like this. So the next step will involve finding the value of d phi dx at the east point and d phi dx as the west point. Okay. Finding the value of d phi dx at the east interface and at the west interface. This small e and small w. So to find that, you cannot directly find it because you only know the values at P, capital E and capital W. Okay. We do not know what is the value at small e and small w. So we have to assume how the variation of the property, like how the variation of temperature is occurring from P to E or from W to P. We have to assume it because there is no other information regarding this. Okay. So we have to assume what is the variation. So we can assume that from P to E, the temperature is varying linearly, or from W to P, the temperature is varying linearly. If the temperature at P is 300 and the temperature at E is 400, we will assume that they are varying linearly from P to E, so from 300 to 400. So at the midpoint, the temperature should be 350. Okay. So once you can assume that, you can find out the derivative value in terms of the grid point values. So d phi dx at east will then be equal to temperature at capital E minus temperature at small e divided by the distance from capital E to small e. The temperature at capital E minus temperature at capital P divided by the distance between capital P and capital E. Okay. So how will we find it? We will find it like 400 minus 300 divided by whatever is the distance. If it is 1 millimeter divided by 1 millimeter. So this will give us the derivative d phi dx. Similarly, for the west side also we can find. So if this value is 250, we will find this as 300 minus 250 divided by this distance 1 millimeter. So ultimately what we will have are grid point values. So we can represent this as phi e minus phi p divided by delta x, and this also has phi p minus phi w divided by delta x. So ultimately our derivatives will be removed and only grid point values will be there. So we will get an algebraic equation with three unknowns, phi p, phi east and phi west. Okay. So three unknowns in one equation, and this is of the same form that we have studied today. So or yesterday. So similarly for the next grid point we will have three unknown values. So for n grid points we will have n unknowns and n equations. We can solve this equation simultaneously to get the n unknown values. Okay. So this is what is done. So the thing that we are doing, assuming that from P to E there is linear variation, there was no information regarding it. We have just assumed this. You could have assumed something else. You could have said that no, I will not take linear assumption. Why should I take linear assumption? I will take quadratic assumption or cubic assumption or any other step assumption, step function. Okay, I will take step function. Whatever you assumption is you can take. Okay, so this step is known as taking a profile assumption. So we have to consider a profile assumption for the dependent variable. And why is this required? To evaluate the integrals so that we can express the flux values. Okay, so that we can express the flux values as a function of the grid point values. Okay, to evaluate the integrals to express the results in terms of algebraic quantities at the grid points. Okay, basically we need the variation of dependent variables as function of independent variables like x and y, so that we can find out the flux values. So this is the method. Important points to note for finite volume method is that subdomains can be of arbitrary. So all this will become clear in the next few classes when we go through more examples. Okay. Today it might seem confusing to you because I am just noting down the features of finite volume method. But after going through a few classes, it will become much more clear what is happening. So the subdomains can be of arbitrary shape. We have seen it can be triangular, quadrilateral, any shape, having certain number of faces. Okay. So one of the major advantages of finite volume method is that you can tackle any arbitrary domain. Okay. So if you have a very complex domain, like say you want to solve the flow mechanism inside a gas turbine. Okay, there are complex blade shapes inside a gas turbine, and flow is occurring around the gas turbine blades. So because this is a complicated domain, tackling it using finite difference method is very difficult. Finite difference method, we have seen that we need variation along x, y directions like this, so that we can use Taylor series expansion along x direction, y direction to represent the uh, derivatives nicely in terms of grid point values. For finite volume, we do not have any restriction. We just have to divide the domain into arbitrary shapes, and for each shape there will be certain number of faces. For each face we can find the flux. Okay, it need not be aligned with the x and y direction. It can be in any direction, these faces, and we will be able to find the flux for any direction. Once we find the flux for any direction, we can just find out the flux in terms of the grid point values, and then we can solve for all the control volume grid point values, unknown values. So if I have say 100 grid points, there will be 100 unknowns and 100 equations, so you can solve them together, okay, or using iterative method. So any complex shapes can be tackled easily, unlike finite difference method. And because we have discretized in the finite volume method, we have used discretization using the principle of conservation, like we have used integral conservation, okay, over the entire domain as well as the subdomain. So for each subdomain, we have conserved values. It satisfies the principle of, means it satisfies that all the properties will be conserved over the entire domain. Okay, as we have derived the integral form of derived based on the integral form of the governing equation, our properties will be conserved over the entire domain and as well as for each subdomain. Okay, if we have just used the differential form of governing equation satisfies the principle of conservation over single points. So our conservation of properties will happen over single points. Okay, so this equation, for any point you take, the property is conserved. Okay, because this is a conservation equation. So it gives us the property conservation over the single point. It will give you conservation of property over the next point. But over the entire domain, you cannot confirm that the mass or momentum of or energy will be conserved. Okay, but unlike that in finite volume, over the entire domain also it is conserved. I think we will stop here and we will continue this discussion in the next class. This is not part of your exam. Okay, this will be part of your NSEM exam. So accordingly, after the midterm, you can study about these things. Okay. But better to go through this quickly before the next class so that you understand this in the next class. So next class will be next Monday, right? Any questions?